Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your tangled yogi out here in Northern California. How are you? I hope you're doing well this fine day. Welcome to the Betweed Star class. I'm so excited to bring you this class. I just got done teaching it to the San Rafael Public Library Zentangle students, and we had a blast with it. Things that you're going to need for class are a Micron PN pen or an O1 or an O5. You'll want to have a graphite pencil so that you can build your string. And then you'll want to have a 4.5 by 4.5 tile. I happen to have the Genesis tile that is at the Tangled Yogi shop. I love this tile because it's super smooth and great for doing color work on. You'll want to have your Prismacolor pencils or a color pencil set of some sort in order to complete the class. All right, so with that said, let's get started with the Betweed Star. Okay, so let's get started here. I'm going to start the regular old-fashioned Zentangle way by putting a dot into each corner here. So you can see that I'm coming down and I'm staying pretty shallow in the corners. And I'm going to start to go ahead and connect my dots to create the border for our tangle today. So you can see I'm just turning, I'm using my regular graphite pencil, just rolling across here. And you can see that I really do like to work with my lines vertically. It seems easier for me to handle, but you may have your own way of handling it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to carry on here, and I'm going to start to divide the space in half so that we build our string. So you're going to see me come up at the top and put a dot where I think the middle is, and I'm going to go ahead and divide the space here. So you can see I'm going across, and then I'll do it again one more time just to develop that string here. So you can see that now I've got these nice spaces in which to work in, and I'm all divided up and ready to go. So go ahead and do yours, and when we come back, we're going to start to build the piece. Okay, so I've gone and zoomed in on the piece here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by creating a little bit of a triangle in here. We're going to make a 6-pointed star. So you can see that I'm going to create a triangle right in the center. And I would say that it's probably about maybe 3/4 of an inch on each side here. So there's the first triangle, and you can see that the center of the triangle is where the center of the lines are meeting. I'm going to come in now and I'm going to start to build the other side of the star, which is right here. So now I've got that star right in the center. Now you'll notice that I'm still working with my pencil here, and that's just because we're building the string of the piece. So I'm going to let go of the pencil now that we have the star in the center. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my Micron PN pen, so you can see there's my pen, and I'm only going to do the outside of the star. So you can see that I'm going to start to work all the way around the outside of my star. So I am not doing the lines on the inside. We'll come around and over, down, and in. So there you can see I've got the outline of the star here. I'm going to start to go ahead and create an aura around it. So it'll be a soft aura when I do this. It's going to come around, and you'll notice that it's going to be rounded on the points. So I'm really just softening out the edges of the star in here by rounding out the edge. Now I'll come over to the other side and do that. Just like so. So there you can see that we have the star in the center, and then we've rounded off the edges with the aura here. So go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to build off of the star. So let's build out now. We're going to start to go into these valleys of the star in here, and I'm going to start to create a point that comes out of the side of it. So you can see that I'm going to come away a little less than a 1/2 inch, and I'm going to create a triangle that comes out of each valley. So here's another triangle right in here, and I'm just going to continue to turn my tile so that it makes it easy for my hand. And we're just going to keep on building out this really fun star. And we're trying to keep these about the same size in their presentation, but we're human beings, so we're easily fallible, as it were. But you can see there's my stars building out. Okay, now once I have that, I'm going to start to build a little bit more with the piece. Now if you need to pause me here, this is a great place to do it. Otherwise we're just going to keep on rolling. So I'm going to come in to the area that's right in between. You can see I've got these 2 points, and I'm going to come away from the top of the piece here about, I'm going to say, a ½ inch. So I'm going to make a little dot right here, and then I'm going to round it out here and soften out and touch those 2 points, just like so. Okay, then I'm going to turn my piece, and it's on the diagonal now. I've got those 2 points right here. I'm looking at this point, and I'm going to try to develop it right about at the same spot. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to make a dot, and then I'm going to go ahead and make a little bit of an arc. Okay, turning my tile, looking at where that dot is. I'm going to go where the 2 points are. So I've got these guys right here, and I'm going to come in, over, make my dot, and then arcing down and arcing down. Turning my tile, coming over to the next point, I'm just going to carry that right where I can make it land, right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and arc, bring it down, and bring it down. Next one's right here, carrying that point, because we want it to be almost in the same place as this point right over here, just trying to keep it as close to it as we can. And then coming over to the opposite side. So here we are, coming in, make that dot right in between the 2 points right here, and we're arcing out and arcing out, so that when I come together, look at how pretty that star is. It's quite lovely. So go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to build our tangles inside of the star. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn over my tile here. We're going to talk about a tangle called Betweed. This is one of the first tangles that I ever learned as a Zentangler, and Betweed is really fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom in here, and I'm going to make what looks like a petal shape. Okay, so that when we turn over, we know exactly where we're going with this. So Betweed is just basically coming in. I'm going to just aura this line right here. Now watch what's going to happen. I'm going to go past the center point and go to the side. And then I'll come down on this side and I'll go past the center point and land on that side. So it's like a weaving pattern, or almost like a braid. And you can see that you can go really far with it. Now we're not going to go too far with Betweed, but we're going to give it a little bit of direction in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in right here at the bottom of my piece, and I'm going to start to build Betweed. And what this is going to look like is I'm going to come in and I'm going to do it 3 times. So I'll come down right here off the side of the piece, and I'm going to aura that line right there, and I go past center. See how I didn't land in the center, I went past it? I'm going to do the same thing over here, so I'm just going to come down and go past center. And then I'll do it again. I'm going to come in and layer, and then I'll do it one more time right over here. And it's really a beautiful tangle. So we're going to go ahead and do that in all of these. Now you'll notice that I've got 1, 2, I've got 2 in there, and then I've got the petal right in here. So here we go again. Ready? I'm going to start on the right hand side, and I'm going to drop down. So I'm coming down and over past the center, and then I'm going to come down and over past the center. One more time, down and over past center, and down and over past the center. Coming to the next one and doing the same, always starting on the right hand side here, over, past center, and down past center. One more time, and one more time. So you're just going to see me start to move through now. You take your time with it, there's no rush. Let your breath be easy. Just turning and going, always starting on the right hand side. Turning and going, turning and going. Last one right here. Right in there. And one more time. So you can see that when I zoom out, we've got this really nice meta tangle that showed up in here. These are beautiful petals that have just shown up now in our tangle. So go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to aura our star. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to aura the star here. So I'm going to come up and I'm just going to go right up above it and start to create a little dot right up at the top, and I'm just going to go for a ride around the star. You can see that I'm the type of person that likes a good place to land, so I'm just going in and creating these little dots for myself so that I know where to start and where to end. It just is for me a little bit of a comfort when I'm doing an aura. So I'm just going around and getting right in here and just building up that star. Coming over to the other side and just building in. I love to work in a circular fashion because when you complete, you look at it and you go, wow, it was just a really nice rhythm of going around that in a circular way. It's just very relaxing. So go ahead and finish your aura, and when we come back, we're going to start to tangle some pumpkins. Let's start to tangle some pumpkins here. This is really fun, and I started doing this tangle a couple of years ago, and I'm not sure if it's an official tangle or not, but it definitely looks like a pumpkin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the valleys of our star here, and let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. So I'm going to start by creating a pumpkin in here, and it's going to be a narrow rectangle, what this is going to look like. So I'm going to come in and do a narrow rectangle, and I'm just going to let it drop into the valley of the star here. Now once I have that, I'm going to come up towards the top of the piece and off to the side, and I'm going to arch off of the side, and then I'm going to do it again. So you can see that where I'm starting is at the top of the tangle and arching off to the side. I'll come over to the other side and do the same. So there's one, and then there's two. So you can see that we have the beginnings of our pumpkin here. And now I'm going to come up to the top and I'm going to create an arc, and then I'll create the stem of the pumpkin. Super easy, right? It's such a fun way to do a pumpkin. So let's go over to the next one and do the same. So once again, starting with that really narrow rectangle, and then coming up to the top and the side and jumping off, top and the side, jump off, same thing over here. And then we're going to come in and make a nice arc and create the stem. All right, so go all the way around. We're going to go in here, in here, in here, and in here, and do our pumpkins. So take your time with it, enjoy. Try to make them about the same size, but if they're not the same size, don't worry about it. It just means that it looks like it's handmade. All right, I'll see you in a minute. So I'm really loving the way that this is starting already. It's just got such a nice feel to it. So we're going to build a little bit off of this piece here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put in my favorite tangle, Tipple. So Tipple, for those of you who are not familiar, is just a cluster of circles. So usually they're in threes, and usually they vary in size. So you can see I've got a larger one, a smaller one, and an even smaller one. Now, a lot of tanglers like to add a little bit of puddling in with their tipple just to give it a little extra pop, and we can do that today as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this piece over, and I'm just going to start by adding some tipple in. So I'll come in right over here. You can see that I've got these really nice valleys that are really close to where the tip of the petal is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a fairly large tipple right in the center, and then I'm going to put a smaller tipple over here and a smaller tipple over there. Now you'll notice when I zoom in on the piece that we get these little triangles in here in between. Those are called interstices, and we're just going to go ahead and puddle into those interstices right there. And you can see that that gives this a little bit of interest. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to come in, throw in some of that tipple. And for me, tipple is like confetti. It just makes a tangle more festive. So you can see that I'm just looking for my little valleys here, and you don't have to do your tipple the same as me. You can, vary up the way that you do it. I'm just merely taking you for the ride, but you're the artist, right? So let your inner artist out to play. So I'm just coming in, puddling those interstices. And getting right in there. So that when I zoom out, you can see the difference between this side and this side. See how they bring a little bit more fun to the party? So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to add in a little bit more. So let's build off of this a little bit. I'm going to zoom in down on this corner right here. So you're going to see me just bring that right in here. We're going to do a tangle that I really love. This is one that I learned during the Inktober challenge that was going on. This is called Effie. And it's such a fun tangle. Those of you who know me, you know that I love henna drum, and this has a lot of similarity to henna drum. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to build a little corner right here so that you can see what Effie can do. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to do just a little bit of an arc and an aura. But then I'm also going to have these little prongs that come up out of the side. So you're going to see me travel up and come out of the side. Now I'm going to come in and start to create a V-like shape that's nice and tall. And then I will go ahead and create these little petals that go off the side. But you'll notice that as I'm doing this, they're kind of mimicking or auraing the side here. So it almost gives it kind of like a warped feeling, or like the petal is curled in on itself. So it really has a nice feeling to it. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over, and I'm going to come down to where my corner is down here, and I'm going to make a little arc, and then another arc, and then I'm going to travel up the side here and start to create this little prong that comes in and over. And then I'll travel up the side here and do a prong that comes in and comes over. Now you'll notice that I have not done in my corner yet, and you can do that, but I'm just using it right now for my own purposes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come up and create that V-like shape, nice and tall. I'm going to arc it off, and then I'll come in right over here nice and close, do a soft arc, and then mimic that line that has the curve to it. See how that happened? And I'll do the same thing over here. I'm just mimicking that line and having it almost look like it's curved in. It's really quite lovely. And then once I'm done with it, I'm going to come around and I'm going to do a little aura around the top of my Effie. Now, if your Effie got really tall, don't worry about it. Just go under and over around your piece in here. It's no big deal. On my first one, I think I had one that looked like that. So let's do that again. So I'm going to come into the next corner here, and I'm going to do a little arc. I'll come up and I'll make a little prong that comes out and in. Coming up over here, make a little prong that goes out and in. Making a little V, so here's my V. An arc on the top, and now I'm going to go ahead and do the next one. So you're going to see me come over, and I'm just going to mimic that line. So I'm mimicking this line right in here, which gives it a nice kind of warped feel to it. I really love this tangle. This is one of my new favorite things. So you're going to go into each one of your corners and finish those off, and I'm going to throw in a little aura around this one. So there you have it. Have some fun with this one. Great tangle, Effie. Isn't that so fun? I just love this. I love when you add pieces into the corner. It just frames it so nicely. So we're going to add a little bit more tangling to the piece here. And one of my favorite tangles is a tangle that I've shared with you guys before. This is called Zinkd. And Zinkd is just a series of triangles with weight in the bottom. So you can see that I'm just puddling in like so. That's Zinkd. Now we're going to do kind of a stretched out version of Zinkd in here. So you can see that I still have my pencil lines in the piece here. Now I'm only going to do Zinkd in two sides here. So what this is going to look like is I'm going to come into the points. So not the places where I've got my my pumpkins, but the points of the star is what I'm looking for. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to make an arc that goes back into my Effie, and then I'm going to do another arc that goes over to the other Effie. Now for me, I tend to do well just by auraing in the lines that I have. So you can see I've flipped over my tile here, and I'm just going to go 1 and 2, and then I'll do one more. 1 and 2. Let's get that to line up. Now once I have that, I'm going to come in and add my weight. So I'm going to go ahead and add weight right here, and I'm going to puddle it in. Add weight right here, puddle it in, and add weight right here. Okay? Now I'm going to flip it over to the other side here. So here I am, I'm right over here. Notice when I come back out, I'm looking for my star. I'm not looking for the pumpkins, I'm looking for my star. And I'm going to come in and I'm just going to go ahead and make an arc over here and make an arc over here. So it's like a triangle or a tent. It kind of looks like a tent. I'm going to flip it over, and then I'm going to aura inside of it. So I'll come down and in, down and in. Go ahead and add your weight. So just a little bit of puddling here. Getting right in there. And one more. So that when I go ahead and turn it to the side, it looks like that star is radiating outward. It has a very nice feeling to it, doesn't it? I just love that. So go ahead, take your time with it, finish that up, and then we're going to come in and add just a couple more pieces right into these spaces. Now I know it's getting busy, but the busier the tangle, the more fun it is to give shading with color. So we are going to add a little bit more into the piece here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a nice triangle right underneath where this pumpkin is. Can everybody see that? So I'm going to go ahead and put a nice triangle right there lining up with the pumpkin. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do one more triangle off to the side and let it touch down into the Effie. And I'll do the same thing over here. So I just have the 3 triangles right there. Now, what I love about this is a combination of a couple of different tangles in here. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to go ahead and do an aura and another aura and another aura. Now I'm going to go ahead and start to just bring in that border. And then once I have that, inside of those little triangles here, I'm going to do a little bit of what looks like Tripoli. It's not completely Tripoli because I'm not going to do it 3 times. I'm just going to do a slight arc and a slight arc. That's it. So just a slight arc and a slight arc. One more time. So that we have that kind of, it almost feels like diamonds in a way. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn my piece upside down and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to come right where that line is and make my triangle nice and wide here. Another one right here. That's going to go right into my Effie and right over to Effie again. Going ahead and doing an aura and an aura. One more time. And then I'll go ahead and I'll bring in that border. And it really doesn't matter when you bring in the border. It's just for me, I like to have a little bit of wiggle room to clean up any lines if I want to. So I'm just going to go around and just kind of start to clean things up. Take your time, breathe, relax into what you're doing. And look at that. Is that just fun or what? Ooh, it's just going to be so fun to bring some color into it. Loving it. All right, so go ahead, finish up yours, and when we come back, we are going to start our shading. I'll see you in a minute. You know, every time I come back and do a piece, I always try to do it a little bit differently. And I want to encourage you to do the same thing when you come back and do a piece. Now, when you are doing something like this could be such a lovely gift for somebody during the holiday season. I mean, what we're looking at is essentially a star, but you know, it's beautiful because it's got the pumpkins in it, so it's seasonal. You could always change it out and do something different, but for, you know, for the purposes of what we're doing for class today, I want you to think about this would make a great holiday card if you wanted to send this out to friends and family. So I'm going to be using 2 different colors here for my centerpiece here. I've got my True Green, which is PC910, and then I also have in my hand one of my new favorites. This is Peacock Green, PC907. Now I just heard that collective groan from those of you who have taken class with me for many, many times that I'm always pulling in new colors, and some of you may not have this color. So don't worry about it. All I'm really looking for is a light green and a dark green. But you know me, I'm always challenging myself to use colors that are in my Prismacolor set that I haven't used before, and this is one of them. So I'm going to start with the light green first, and let's zoom in on that really pretty star. Now, if you want to, you can come in and erase your pencil marks so that your star is nice and clean in here. Such a pretty, pretty star. I like that. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to start to work on the side of my pencil. Now, for those of you who have never taken class with me before, remember, each pencil that you have in your set is 3 different colors. You have your light, you have your medium, and you have your dark. It's all about the amount of pressure that you're putting on that pencil. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to very softly, very lightly start to fill in about 3/4 of this star here. So you're going to see me just roll on through. Now once I have that, I'm going to very softly leave just a little bit of light right in that area. Now, because this color is so translucent in its presentation, I will be switching over to that darker color soon. But first I'm going to come in and I'm going to add a little bit of pressure to that pencil. You know, I love working with color pencils because you can take them anywhere. You don't need water, and you get such beautiful colors, and you can mimic watercolors. You can mimic so many different things with a good color pencil, and that's why I love the Prismas. They're just wonderful. So for those of you who have never taken with me before, I am a big Prismacolor fan, so you can see it says Prismacolor on my pencils. They're a great price, and they're a great bargain for the money, and I know that you'll be very happy with whatever set you get. They're just wonderful to work on, and you can work on any color paper with them, which is great. So I've done a little bit of that heavier color with that light, so I'm still in that same light color, but I pressed a little bit harder. Now I'm going to come in with that pretty peacock green here, and I'm going to go ahead and give this a little bit of definition. So you're going to start to see that I'm very, very lightly coming in and doing this because this pencil has so much pigment to it. I don't have to worry about pressing hard. And you can see that my pencil is working in a little circular like motion here. And that actually is so that I get a nice mist of color. Now, one of the things that I like to do is I'll come back in with that original green and I'll start to blur out my edges. And what I mean by that is I'm dipping into where that light green has met the darker green. And you can see that I'm just kind of rolling over it and blurring out the edge. Now, as I get further away, I'm lightening up my pressure on that pencil so that it just turns into a dusting of color. And look at what that did for that star. Is that just so pretty? I just love that. Just a gorgeous, intense kind of teal color, almost like an emerald. Super fun. All right, so you go ahead and do yours. I'll do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to add a little bit more to the piece. So one of the things that I talk about a lot in my work is carrying color. And carrying color means that you're taking color from a piece and starting to move it into the outward areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to where my 3 triangles are here, and I'm going to lightly start to dust into my 3 triangles. So what this is going to look like is I'm going to come in and softly dust that green right in there. Same thing over here. And same thing over here. Now once I have them lightly dusted in, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a little bit of intensity right down at the bottom. Now I'm going to stick with my true green just for a minute. You can see that I'm pressing hard. Not so hard that I'm going to break it, but hard enough so that I get a little bit more intensity in my color. And then I'm going to dust down in the edges, right in here and right in here. So right in the valleys here. And you can see that that just brings a little bit of dimension into those pieces. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flip over to the opposite side, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm coming in, dusting. Now remember, you don't have to use the same colors as me. If you're a wild rebel, I want you to be as rebellious as you want to be and do your own thing. So in fact, I'm encouraging you to go off the rails and do your own thing. Just follow the shading technique. See how that works for you. We encourage creativity here, so whatever floats your boat, I want you to do in terms of your artistic endeavors. So getting right in there and bringing that through. Super, super beautiful. Love the feeling of that, so that when I zoom out, you can already see that it's starting to anchor the piece. Just by adding one color, it's really changed everything. And I love that about working with color. All right, you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to add more color to the piece. Okay, so let's continue to carry color here. I want to talk about our tipple that we have around the star, and I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit larger so that you can see. Now, granted, this is going to take a little while because we have a lot of tipple in here, but I'm just going to lightly shade one side of the tipple here and leave a little bit of white in the background over there. And then I'm going to pick up my darker color and just do a dusting of that darker color. And you can see that this brings in a nice dimension into that tipple. Now, even for the small ones, you can just do half and just get a little bit of that shine going in here. And then I'm going to come in with a little bit of that darker color as well. So I'm going to go all the way around and do my tipple. And I find tipple to be extremely hypnotic and relaxing to work on when you're shading. So really take a moment to get into the zen of it. Really feel what you're doing and just relax into it and be present. Okay? I'll see you in a minute. Enjoy what you're doing. So we're going to continue to carry our color one more time. You're going to see that I'm going to come in right down here into Elfie here. Or Effie, sorry, and you're going to see that I'm going to start to shade in halfway and just start to get a really nice kind of soft green in here. I'm not using a heavy tension. And then I'll come in with that darker color and just dust the edges all throughout in here. And you'll see that I'm hugging the edge of that Effie in here. Now I'll come back in with a little bit of the lighter color and just roll through the edges in here, nice and soft. And I'm going to do that in all of my corners in here, so you can do all of your corners as well. So go ahead, have some fun, and I'll see you in a minute. Okay. So we're going to let go of the green for a little while, and we're going to start to introduce some warmer colors in for the pumpkins that we have here. So I happen to have three colors in my hand. I have a yellow, an orange, and a red. Now the yellow that I have, this is the yellow ochre, and this is PC942 for those of you at home who are looking for the colors that I'm using. And then I also have my mineral orange, which is PC1033, and then finally I have a little bit of Scarlet Lake, which is PC923, and these are really lovely together. You know, a lot of my students say to me, how do you know what colors to use? I don't know what colors to use when I'm on my own. So what I say to you now is if you like these color combinations, write these down so that when you're doing a tangle on your own, you can go and play and try different things. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with that yellow first, and once again, if you've got any lines that are going through your piece that you'd like to get rid of, you can always just take a little gummy eraser and get across them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just with the yellow. So I'm going to come in, and you can see that I'm pretty well sharpened up here, and I'm going to just start to saturate that pumpkin with a little bit of the yellow. And this is just creating a really nice base for us so that as we move forward with the blending of colors, we will really have something nice to work with underneath. I always find that when you lay down a color first, the other colors just want to glide right on top of it and really get in there. So I'm going to take away that yellow, and now I'm going to introduce the orange in here. And the orange is going to go about 3/4 of the way up the pumpkin so that we're just leaving the brightness of that yellow right up at the top. You'll notice that I'm working on the side of that pencil, and that pencil is working in a circular like motion, really giving us that nice mist of color for that pumpkin in here. So I'm getting in there, just really misting that in. And then once I have that, I'm going to let go of that one and I'm going to come in with my red. And the red is going to give us the drama that we're looking for. So you're going to see me kind of stay nice and low with that red. And once again, still working in that circular motion with the pencil. You can see that it's rolling. It's not going up and down, it's going in little circles. Once I've got that red in there, now when I get down towards the bottom, I'm going to give it a push. And I want that to have a little bit of a pop to it. So that's why I'm pushing the color a little bit. So giving it a little bit more intensity right in here. And then finally, I'm going to come back in with a little bit of that yellow and I'm going to start to blur out my edges. And you'll notice that I'm starting from the top and working my way down and starting to get into the reds. So always working from the top down. You don't want to work from the bottom up because you'll pull that darker color up. And we really want this to look like a pumpkin. We don't want it to be red. We want it to be more orange in its presentation. So I'm just going through and adding a little bit more, getting in there nice and medium tension there. And you can see that I feel like I need a little bit more orange, so I can always come back in and start to layer my colors a little bit and really get in there and decide what I need to have. So it's kind of like you're letting out your inner artist and you are deciding how much of that orange and how much of that red you're going to have in the piece. And I really love the way that this is looking. It's really starting to come together. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do all my pumpkins. You go ahead and do yours. Now remember, if you're feeling pressure to keep up or whatever, this is a circular piece, so all you have to do is half. And then you can continue on with the video if you're feeling like you want to just get through it. But remember, this is fun, so you can pause me at any time and work at your own pace. All right, I'll see you in a minute. So look at that. Oh, it's just starting to glow. I just love watching pieces come to life. And I know you guys have heard me say this before, but I'll say it again. There is nothing better than watching a piece come to life right in front of you. It's just like it's emerging. It wants to be there. So I'm going to carry some color. I'm going to carry backwards and forwards, but I'm going to carry right into these pieces right in here. So not the little prongs. The little prongs are going to stay where they are, but these bigger petals in here I'm going to go in and grab. So I'm going to come in and let's zoom in on this here for a second so that we can really see what we're working with. So I'm working with the bigger petals and I'm going to go ahead and get right in there with that yellow. I'm still working with the same colors that we did on the pumpkin. And I'm going to take that yellow and put it in there. I'm going to do two so that you can see what I'm really up to here. So I'm getting right in there and laying that color down. Now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to do a little bit of the reverse here. So I'm going to leave the lightness, I think, towards the the inside. So what it's going to look like is I'm going to come in and I'm going to start to shade in at the tip, so that it almost looks like we're getting a nice shadow at the tip. And I'm just going to let it drop down on the sides just a skosh, not a lot. And then finally I'm going to come in and I'm going to let the red just be right up at the top. Now, like I said before with the other one, you'll decide how much red, how much orange you're going to pull into this. Now I'm just going very carefully in here and just blurring out my edges, and then I'm going to go ahead again and bring in some of that yellow and let that soften the whole thing up. Now, if you feel like you want to add a little bit of red right on the line here, that will be a really cool effect because it kind of looks like it's dipping down into the background, which is really cool. So I'm going to do that one more time so that you can see what I did. So here's the yellow. Now I've got the mineral orange in my hand, and I'm going to go ahead and start shading from the tip back. And what I'll do is I'll start to shade back and down, and then once again picking up that red and getting that red in there and letting that dust up at the tip and going right along the line on the side. Now, if you need to blend, you can come back in and blend and start to get all of that kind of softened up in there. And that just really has such a beautiful feel to it. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then we'll start to work on those flowers on the outside. So let's continue to carry some of that color. Well, let's bring it into the Effie in here. So I'm just going to come in and start to bring in that yellow that we were using before. So I'm going to start to dust into the Effie petals here and just get right in there. Now you'll notice that I'm working on the side of my pencil, and I'm going very, very lightly with this, so just nice and light. Now once I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to pick up that orange and go about 3/4 of the way through the petal in here. So you can really see that I'm just getting that color to saturate fairly quickly here. And I'm working on the side of the pencil. Now, once I've had a chance to get some of that orange down, now I'm going to go for my red. And it's almost like I'm going for like a poinsettia kind of feel to it. I want it to have a feeling of the holidays, and we're starting to move into the holiday season here. So I'm just going to start to work with that red and lay it down about 3/4 of the way through. There's just a touch of the orange that's poking out from underneath it, so not a lot. And then I'll come in and I'll just dust into those side pieces just a little bit. Just get them in there. And then I'll come down at the bottom, and now it's going to get really rich and beautiful. So you can see that I'm giving that a significant push here. I would say this is a medium to a hard tension. Just getting right in there. Now once I've had that, and I've got it really well in there, I'm going to go back to the orange, and I'm just going to start to blend a little bit. So just lightly blending from where that red is meeting the orange. And then once I have the blend from where the red is meeting the orange, I'm going to go ahead and grab that yellow again and soften the whole thing out. So you can see that I'm just rolling right over the top, leaving just a touch of that real lightness up at the top. And look at how gorgeous that is. Isn't that beautiful? Love those colors together. Just a really nice combination. So that when I zoom out, look at how beautiful those are working with each other here. It really has a nice soft feel. So I'm going to go and do all the 4 corners here. You do yours, and then when we come back, we are going to start to work with the pieces of Zinkd. So we're going to let go of the orange and the red and the yellow, and we're going to start to cool down the piece here. So in my hand I happen to have the blush pink, which is PC928, and then I also have the Parmsa purple, which is PC954. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to just do half of the piece here just for the sake of the video, and I'm going to start with the pink first and just work my way through on one side so that you can really see the difference of the whole piece together. So I'm going to go in and start to work on the side of that pencil and really get it nice and soft through here. So you can see that I'm just rolling through and filling in those spaces. And right now it's probably going to look really soft and subtle, but just still really soft. Sorry, you can hear my my dog in the background. He's barking. Sorry about that, folks. So anyway, I'm just going through and getting that in there. And then once I've got the pink in there, I'm going to go ahead and start to bring in some of that darker purple. And I'm going to start to really shade around the pumpkins. So I'm really getting in there and softly layering that color all the way around the star in here. So you can really see that. So I'm just going through and adding more of that purple all the way around. And it's really just developing a shadow, and that's really what I'm looking for, is that shadow that's going around the main star with the pumpkins. And then I'll come in around the triangles and add just a touch around the triangles too, but you can see that I'm leaving the highlight in the center as well, just to give it a little bit of drama. So you can see there's the highlights right in there. So I'm just working my way through, leaving those highlights in there. And then I'll come back in and I'll start to add a little bit of pressure to that purple right along the edges, so you can see that I'm really working to develop that really dark low light in the piece. So I'm just really getting in there and giving that a nice heavy push. I'll come around and get right in here, and then I'll go back and start to roll through the back part of the piece, really just getting it to pop. So just really working with it. And it's just going to give us this really nice dramatic background. Now, once I've had a chance to get through there, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to blur my edges. So you're going to see me pick up that pink again, and I'm just going to start to blur those edges out. And this is just going to give it a really nice softness in the background. And I love the contrast that we're getting off of the pumpkins and the green in the background. It's really just giving it a beautiful pop. Now once I've got that, you can really see the difference if I zoom out. Look at how dramatic this is in here versus over here. It's just got a lot of drama and intensity. So I'm going to go all the way around and work with the Parmsa purple and the pink and get that really nice shadow going. And you go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to add a little bit of an element of wallpaper to this. You can see that the shadowing really does a lot for that background, doesn't it? It just brought the whole thing forward. I'm really enjoying this piece. So I want to add a little bit more to that background. Normally I use a technique with you guys called wallpaper, and we usually do printemps with our wallpaper, which is a spiral-like tangle. But today I'm really kind of in the mood to use a tangle called Shattuck. And let's see here. I think it's Shattuck. I think that's how it's spelled. And Shattuck looks a little bit like this. So I'm going to go ahead and take my pen, even though I'm not going to use it for the wallpaper. I'm going to just do a demo of it. Shattuck is just arcs that build off of each other. So it has the feeling a little bit of printemps because it's got that echo in it, but it's a really fun tangle, and it just brings a lot of depth into a piece. So you can see how pretty that is. Shattuck, it's one of my favorite tangles, definitely a mac and cheese tangle for sure. So I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to work in one of my sections, and this looks like a really great section to start with. One of the things that I do with wallpaper is I tangle with the color that I did in the background. So I've sharpened up this pencil nice and sharp here, and I'm not pressing overly hard, but I'm just going to start with that Shattuck, which is the arcing, and then I'm just going to build off of that arcing. You can see that I'm just going to go right on and build off of it. And I might just continue over and just keep building. So you can see that that brings a lovely depth into the background where it might not have had it before. So I'm just working my way through. And you can put as many or as little wallpaper pieces in here so that when I zoom out, look at how interesting this area is compared to over here. It just has a little that je ne sais quoi, that little thing that makes it special. So go ahead, do some wallpaper, see how you feel about it, and then when we come back, we'll start to work with our Zinkd. Let's start to bring some more color into this piece here. We're going to let go of the purples, and I've picked up two blues that I'm working with here. So I've got the light aqua, which is PC992. Can you tell I love this pencil? I think I'm going to have to retire it sometime soon because it's not going to fit in my pencil sharpener very much longer. And then I also have one of my favorite darker blues. This is the Copenhagen blue. But I'm going to start with the light aqua first, and I'm going to go ahead and start to shade in to the star and into Zinkd here. So what that's going to look like is I'm going to start by just doing a little bit of that light aqua in here, and then a little bit of the light aqua in the top. Now you'll notice that in the center here I'm leaving a little bit of white. Let's make this nice and big so that you can see. So I'm just working my way up at the top here, and then I'm going to come in and work down at the bottom. So you can see that I'm doing it in the valleys and up at the peaks, but not in here. I'm leaving a little bit of light in there. So once I've got that, and I've got a nice saturation of that blue, and you'll notice that I didn't do a really heavy saturation of the blue, just kind of nice and light. I'm going to come in with that darker blue and just ever so lightly start to bring in a little shadow in here and a little shadow right over here. I'm going to start to press a little bit heavier right around where the prong is in here, so you can see there's the prong. And I'll press a little bit heavier right over here too. At the tip I'm going to do the same thing, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a little bit of pressure there just to make the tip stand out. So I would say this is a medium pressure that I'm doing, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a push. So you can see that that gives it a really neat kind of strength, or a little bit of, how shall we say, definition. So I'm going to come back in with a little bit of the lighter blue, and I'm going to start to blur out my edge where the darker blue is meeting the lighter blue. So you can see that I'm softening up that line of demarcation here and really getting in there. And then I'll come over here and do that as well. So you can see that that's really, really pretty. You can see the difference. I mean, like, I would love to just take a picture of this right here just before we get all the way around. But you know, for the sake of the video today, we're just going to stick with what we've got. So go ahead and do all of your points just like that. And then when we come back, we'll work with Zinkd. So you can see why I wanted you to take a picture of your piece. Look at how much that changed it. Isn't that fun? I just love seeing how unexpected little pieces can change a piece so much, and it really just made that star pop, didn't it? So what we're going to do is we're going to start to work on our Zinkd here. And I'm going to come in with that light blue once again, and I'm going to make this nice and big so we can all see it. Let's go ahead and just dust that in with some of that light blue. I'm working on the side of my pencil here, and I'm working in a circular-like motion, getting that mist of color. And then once I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and start to add a little bit of shading to it. And what I want to do is I want to make it feel as though each piece has got a little bit of a shadow on it. So I'm going to come in right here and add a little bit of a shadow right underneath that line with that darker blue. So I've got the Copenhagen blue in my hand, and I'm just working my way through, adding a little bit of a shadow. I'm going to do the same thing over here, just a little dusting of that blue. And then I'm going to do the same thing up top. So just right up here, I'm going to give it a little bit of a shadow as well. I'm not doing a heavy pressure. I'm doing a really light pressure right now because I'm trying to establish a really soft kind of shadow. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to blur my edges just a bit, so just going along where the dark blue is meeting the light blue. And then once I have that, I'm going to come in and I'm going to sharpen up that little darker pencil because I really want to get a nice tip on it. And you can see there it is. And because we're working in such a small area, we want to make sure that we've got a good tip. So I'm going to come in and right along the black line, I'm going to really give that a nice little push. Not a heavy push that you're going to break the lead, but just enough so that you can see the difference between that really light dusting of the dark blue and the push of the dark blue. So you can see it gives it a glow, doesn't it? Which is really quite lovely, so that when I zoom out, look at how this is defining the space and how we've lost the definition here. This really anchors the space and really gives it something nice. So go ahead and do the other side, and then when we come back, we're going to add a little bit of that light blue into the sides over here. Isn't that so fun? It just has such a cool feel to it. So you can see now that we've carried our color, we've gone outward with the color, which is really quite lovely. Let's continue to bring that color outward just a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into the pieces that I have down here. Now, some of you might say that this is, part of Tripoli. There was a really fun tangle that was done by one of my favorite CZTs, Deb Bauer, that lives up in Canada, and it kind of looks like Zagoli too. It has a little bit of that flair to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with that light blue, and I'm just going to dust it right into those little pieces that are like a curtain that are inside of the tangle here. Now once I have it dusted in, I'm going to go ahead and grab that darker blue, and right along the black line I'm going to give this a little bit of definition. So it's just a little bit, not a ton. And you can see that that just gives it a really pretty pop in there, which I really love. So I'm going to go over to the other side and I'm going to do the same thing. So you can see that I'm going to start by dusting in the light blue first. So I have the light blue. And then once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and start to bring in that darker blue right in here. So we're creating that shadow right underneath the triangle in here, just to give this a pop of definition. So go ahead and do yours, I'll do mine, and then when we come back, we'll add a little bit more inside. So once we have that, I'm going to come right back into where we have these beautiful triangles, and you can see that I have the yellow in my hand that I used when we were working with the pumpkins here. So I'm going to come in and just start to dust a little bit of that yellow right into the inside of those triangles. I'm going to flip this over and do the same thing on the other side. Now once I have that, I'm going to start to carry a little bit more of that yellow throughout the piece here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to where the pumpkins are, and I'm going to start by bringing in just a little bit of yellow into where the pumpkins are, in the stem of the pumpkin. Now once I have that, I'm just going to go all the way around and put that in. So now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, why didn't we do that in the first place? And the reason for this is we're going to pull out some graphite and we're going to use it to create a shadow. And I always hold off on the graphite until the very, very end so that we're not working on a piece and have a lot of graphite that we can smear or smudge. Now, some of you know that I don't prefer to work with graphite if I don't have to, just because it does smear and smudge. So I do like to work with the 1065 in the Prismacolor set. That way you're not wearing the graphite on the side of your hand. But if you only have a graphite pencil handy, go ahead and grab it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into where that pumpkin is, and I'm just going to do a little dusting of that gray right at the base of where that stem is. And that's just going to give us a little bit of a shadow on the stem of the pumpkin, and it'll make it stand out just a little bit. So you can see that I'm just going around and adding a little bit of that dusting right on the stem of the pumpkin. So go ahead and do yours. I'll do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to finish up the center of our star. All right, have fun, relax, take a breath, and remember, this is all about enjoyment and bringing your creative juices forward, okay? Have fun. And didn't that define the space in such a nice way? I think that really did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of that silver or the gray that we just used, and I'm going to start to bring it in towards the center. And I'm going to do just a little bit of shading in the valleys of where the star is. So you're going to see me come around and do a gentle shading right in the valley. So not a heavy shade. We want to go light first. You always go light first, and then you can come back and do the darker pieces. So I'm really just doing a light shade first. Then I'm going to come back into the valley and just do a pop of that heavier color. So I'm giving it a push. And you can see that that also brings in a little bit of interest into the piece in here, which is so lovely. Now, the prongs that we have in here, they need a little bit of color. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that background color into the prongs. So these pieces right here are going to come in here. So I've got that pink and that purple that I was working with earlier. And what it's going to look like is I'm going to dust the prongs with a little bit of pink, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in right at the tip of the prong and add a little bit of that purple and give it a little bit of a push. And then once I have that, I will just do a little bit of a softening right where that purple is meeting the outside edge. Now, if you want to add a little bit of purple on the inside too, you're welcome to add a little bit of purple on the inside. And that just gives it a really kind of soft feeling to it. And I'll even push a little bit harder just to get a little bit more definition out of that. So go ahead and do yours, and when we come back, we'll add a little bit of finishing touches. So I'm going to add just a little bit more to the piece here. I'm going to go back to our star, and I want to add just a little bit of weight into the Betweeds, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I've picked up my Micron pen, so I've got my pen in hand, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of weight right where the Betweeds are meeting each other. And you'll notice that when I do that, it just gives a little bit more gravity to the star. So just by looking here versus here, it really has a little bit of depth. So let's show that again one more time. So I'm just going to come in and add a little bit of weight right at the tip of Betweed. And I'm just going to put that in, and you can see I'm using my micron and I'm going right over the top of that color pencil. If you are having trouble with your pen, you may want to have a piece of scratch paper nearby just to give you a little bit of a place to kind of clean off your pen if it's acting a little cantankerously. You can see that just by adding that little bit of weight, it's going to give the star a little bit more of definition, which I really love. So I'm just going through and adding wherever the betweed is. So you go ahead and finish up yours, I'll finish up mine, and then when we come back, we will add just a little bit more to the piece. So you can see that just by doing those dots, that really gives this quite the boost. I'm really enjoying that. Now I'm going to come back out here to my Effie here, and I'm going to add just a little bit to the Effie. I'm going to come in and I'm going to do an aura. And then I'm going to aura one more time inside of Effie. And then I'm going to puddle the aura just to give it some interest. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go around, and then I'll come inside and add a little bit more. And that just gives a really neat feel to the piece. So you go ahead and do some on yours, and I'll finish up mine. And then when we come back, we're going to do our chop.
Didn't that turn out fun? I love that little detailing inside of the petals. It just gives it a little bit more, how shall we say, that little specialness that I'm always looking for in a tangle. So I've gone in and added my chop. Your chop is just your initial that lets you know that you've completed the piece and you're ready to let it go. And I must confess that I do continue to work on a piece after I have put my chop on it. I just can't let it go. Sometimes it's like a really good book. You just can't let the characters go. And it's fun to just kind of doodle a little bit and change things up here and there. But it is a nice way to complete. Now, I have done this piece one time before, and that was the original. And so this is the one that I've completed with you today. And I want to encourage you to come back and try the piece with different colors and different shades and that kind of thing, because you just never know what changing one little element will do for a piece. And these will make wonderful cards to send out for the holidays and whatnot. So really feel free to come back and try different things and change it up and make it really yours. Now, if you like the class, please leave a nice review or a thumbs up, or subscribe to our page. Every time that you subscribe to the page, you get notifications that I'm adding classes to the page, and then you won't miss anything. And also, when you subscribe, it helps us to get seen by more people, so that if they want to learn how to do Zentangle in color, more people will join in. So that's always fun too. Now, if you want to join our Tangled Yogi Art Community page on Facebook, it's just Tangled Yogi Art Community, and you go there and you answer the questions, and you'll get let into a group of really great artists and students and teachers that love to share their work, and we all learn from each other. It's really just a fantastic, supportive community. So that's it for me. I'm Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi. Thanks for joining us today. Bye for now.